On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, SGA thinks this team is even better than last year. Is he right?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. We're here talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder every single day, Monday through Friday, and after every game, and our 2 p.m. Central Monday and Thursday live streams. Today, we're joined by Justin Martinez covering the Thunder for the Oklahoman. He's out on the West Coast. It's an afternoon pod for him, an evening pod for me, as we break down this road trip coming up for the Thunder, the season that has been a 7-0 start for OKC. And if this team is better, today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Justin, how was your trip out there to the West Coast? Any fun travel stories?
So far it's just been getting to LA at around 10 o'clock, checking in at 3. So just killing some time here in Inglewood. Just hanging out at the Chili's in the area, and that's about it. I literally just walked into the hotel a couple of minutes ago and we're ready to pod.
And for those listeners of the live stream, Chili's was a banned word and a banned restaurant in this podcast hemisphere because they took away the skillet queso. However, they've since brought it back. So Chili's, they're back on the menu, literally. So you're okay to say Chili's now on this show, or else you would have been hit with a little technical foul there, Justin. But you were not. It's rescinded because Chili's rescinded their dumb idea to take away the skillet queso. But you are out on the West Coast. So is this team, who's 7-0 right now, tying their franchise's best start with last year's team. Last year, they lost in Game 8 to Denver. This year, Game 8 is against the Clippers on Peacock. Justin, let's start there. Do you believe this team will go 8-0?
I do. I feel like they've had all the opportunities in the world to lose any of these games really along the way. You just look at the injuries they've had. They've had back-to-backs. They've had obviously the big target on their back, and they just seem to find ways to win. So I really don't feel like, it would just be, it wouldn't be in my best interest to pick against them. I'm going to keep rolling with it until they prove otherwise, even though they do have injuries still going on right now. This is just a team that's resilient, and a team that is, they always preach that they're taking like, this game is just as important as game whatever of the finals. And that sounds a little bit like cliche, but you really do see it. They take all these games seriously. So I do expect OKC to give its best effort and ultimately come out on top in this one.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about this game is that while it is, nationally televised on Peacock at 10 p.m. our time, but a nice game for you on the West Coast, the Clippers on the second night of a back-to-back, and their injury report for this game on Monday has Kawhi playing and has all their guys playing. The only guys that are not playing are two-ways. So the Clippers are fully going for this Monday game. Let's see how they manage their minutes and what they're going to look like on Tuesday. So the unknown of like, what even is Kawhi going to look like on the second night of a back-to-back if he even plays with the rest of their crew and this older roster. You got to lean Thunder here, but it will be a tougher test. I think that this road trip in general will be the toughest stretch of their season so far coming into, this week. Their schedule is the 27th strongest schedule in the NBA. Not a very strong schedule to start, but now you play the Clippers on Tuesday, which if they're healthy, they're a legit team and a legit playoff team in this Western Conference. The Trailblazers on a back-to-back will be tough. The Trailblazers are 4-1 of the last 5 games. And then 3 games in 4 nights, the NBA Cup opens up for OKC with the Kings, and then they end it by flying all the way to Memphis and taking on the Grizzlies to end this road trip. So a very tough road trip. Let's start with the Clippers game. Let's just assume, for the sake of podcasting, because we won't know until midway through Tuesday if Kawhi will play. Let's assume the Clippers play everybody, and they are good, even though they're on the second night of back-to-back. What are you looking for in this matchup?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously going to come down to, these role players continuing to shine the way that they have. We know we're going to get out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Obviously he's going to have some good defenders on him, but he does every single night and he still does what he does. So I feel like that's kind of a given at this point. But the thing is, obviously, with some of these main guys out, Dub, obviously, we're not sure just how long. Chet will be out as well. It comes down to like the Isaiah Hardensteins, the Aaron Wiggins, the AJ Mitchells of the world. We're going to have to see them continue to step up, which they have done to this point. But that's something they're going to have to do because Los Angeles, as you mentioned, is potentially going to be at full strength. And also when they are at full strength is a very deep team as well. So there's going to be a battle of the benches. And it's just going to be up to OKC's bench to, to take that challenge on.
Yeah, and we did hear from Shai in the Netflix Starting Five series that he gets up for these Clippers games. Like, these games do matter to him more than he lets on to the public prior to this Netflix documentary being released. So that'll be an interesting storyline. And then also the absence of J-Dub. And so J-Dub is out in this game. He'll also be out for the next 10 to 14 days from Friday. So knock a couple days off that as we're now on Tuesday. But 10 to 14 days he'll be reevaluated. Not necessarily a guaranteed return, but he had those screws removed from his wrist after they were giving him some irritation following that wrist surgery. So a follow-up procedure was had for J-Dub. And so he's out for 10 to 14 days. I want to get your thoughts on that overall timeline, but also how it zeroes in on the Clippers, who now, if they do play all their guys, it puts a lot to me on Alex Caruso. I think that this has to be a big Alex Caruso game to match up with Kawhi, to match up with this Clippers team.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, it's another step back for Dub. We know what he brings to the table. So without him, you're missing another 20-plus points per game scorer, a versatile defender. Like you mentioned, in a matchup like this, would be very helpful to have a 6'6" guy who can defend all the way up to the 5 spot. We've seen a guy like obviously like Aaron Wiggins has done his best to step up and defend those bigger opponents. But for the most part, you're going to look for guys like Alex Caruso to step up. Lou Dort, when he's able to, also to step up as well. Because it is really tough to fill J-Dub's production. Like, obviously the offense is a big thing, but yeah, defensively he is one of the most versatile guys, and that's something that they're going to miss in this matchup.
Coming up, we're going to preview the entirety of this road trip, but looking backward at this 7-0 start, there's a lot to take in. The team has been shorthanded. They've played a couple double overtime games. They've played half the clutch minutes already this year that they did all of last season. What's been the biggest standout whenever you think back of all 7 games? What resonates with you the most from this start for OKC?
I think it goes back to the resiliency of this team is the big thing. But also just you look at like this is still a young team, even though they won a championship. This is a team that should continue to make individual progression, even if it's obviously not bringing in the splashy signings that it did before with the Carusos and the Hardensteins. You look at Shai, obviously the 3-point shot isn't falling consistently for him, but he's getting to his spots really at will. He's shooting, I think it's like 60% from inside the arc, which is better than a guy like Jared Allen, which is insane when you think about it that way. So in that sense, he has improved. You look at a guy like Kayson Wallace, who's averaging 3 steals per game. He has 18 steals through his first 6 games, which is a franchise record, beating Paul George in 2017, 2018. So he's getting even better at getting into the passing lanes. Obviously, you see the jump that Ajay Mitchell has made. He's a guy who, is going to be in that 6th man of the year, maybe even most improved conversation. These are just all individual jumps that are making up for the fact that they're obviously not in that position anymore where they're going to be making those big additions. And that's been the main thing that's really stood out to me.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see how this team has handled themselves. And to me, it's been the return to form, even in the absence of guys. Like, this team is still the best defensive rating team in the league, the best net rating team in the league, even after their first 2 games with the double overtime. It's pretty wild that they've had every excuse in the book between missing an all-NBA forward in J-Dub the entire 7 games, missing Alex Caruso for 3, a defensive ace and an all-defensive caliber player with 2 all-defensive teams to his name, missing Chet Holmgren for 3 of those games, missing Kayson for a game, Isaiah Joe for a large stretch. They've missed a lot of pieces. And at any given moment, they could have had a lapse. They could have had a stumble, and it would have been more than justifiable. But they just doubled down on creating this havoc-inducing defense that is able to generate these blowout wins the last 2 nights and get Shai rest in that 4th quarter. And they've been able to weather this storm, and it continues to show just how uncommon this team is. Like you look around the NBA, you look at Cleveland dropping a couple games that they shouldn't, Orlando stumbling out of the gate. These teams that were expected to be great, but weren't promised to be great, and then they've ended up failing at times already this season. For the Thunder to be 7-0 through all this adversity, it just reaffirms what this core is. And this core is even better than last year's championship roster. Shai thinks so. We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at Game Time, go check out Game Time today because Game Time is great. Nothing beats being in the arena. With basketball season here, these opening games, they feel big. The NBA Cup feels big. Let's be real, though. Getting tickets can be a total headache at times between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices jumping right before you hit that checkout button. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is go cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love the fact that the price you see is the price you pay. Zero hidden fees at checkout from Game Time. They also have a great feature, their zone deals. It's a game changer. You pick what section you want to sit in, and Game Time gives you the seats that you save the most on. You can find NBA tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKDOWNNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Go to Game Time, use code LOCKDOWNNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go at Game Time. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles. That's just the Martinez of the Oklahoman, covering the Thunder in this 7-0 start, which ties their franchise best mark. They look to get to 8-0 tonight in a late tip against the LA Clippers. We'll have you recap there. Let's stick on this road trip for a second, Justin. Between the caliber of teams, of like the Clippers are for sure a playoff team. The Portland Trailblazers could be a spunky little play-in team. And then the Clippers and the Grizzlies, we know what to think of them. But also between the teams and the logistics of this long travel and going from west to east out to the Memphis Grizzlies, what do you think would give the Thunder the most hesitation and the most trouble in this road trip?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this first one's going to be just a tough matchup. I mean, this is the best team of the road trip that they would be facing. But that second game against Portland, you got a 10 o'clock game tonight as this is coming out. And then the next day you've got a game. You got to travel out to Portland against a sneaky good Trailblazers team. I mean, this is a team that is pretty good defensively. Like, they really have turned things around, even dating back to like the end of last season is when things really started to pick up. They've got those wing defenders, obviously with Kamara leading the way. They've got Denny Avdia as well. Like, they've got guys who at least can try to make life difficult for Shai. And then, yeah, with that being the second out of a back-to-back, who knows how safe OKC plays it with resting guys or whatever the case may be. So I think that is, to me, is one of the more interesting matchups in this road stretch because, yeah, that's going to be one of those trap game, if you want to call it that. It's going to be a tough one for sure.
Yeah, and you look at this road trip, I think that the logistics are the biggest factor at play here because ultimately, just in a vacuum, are the Thunder better than the Clippers, better than the Trailblazers, better than the Kings and the Grizzlies? Yes, they are better than all those teams. But are those teams capable of beating OKC? Certainly. It's an 82-game season, and you're going to lose games, and you're going to have stretches where it's tough. And right now, you go from Inglewood up to Portland, back down to Sacramento. That happens with 3 games and 4 nights. That in and of itself is very hard before you factor in a random game against Memphis to fly back to at the end of this. And on top of that, they're already shorthanded. Like, Chet Holmgren has missed the last 3 games with back soreness. He now, we don't know what he's going to do for this back-to-back, but you would assume that he's going to miss at least one of the back-to-backs, which is perfectly fine and perfectly safe. You're not going to have J-Dub. Of course, you're still missing 2 rotational pieces in Kinrich and Topic. So it's like you're going to be missing a lot of guys that it puts a lot on Shai. It puts a lot on Ajay Mitchell to keep playing well, and also Ajay Mitchell to return to form from the efficiency standpoint. Like, the efficiency from Ajay has dipped to the point where it's not even really noticeable because you're still blowing out teams. You're blowing out Washington. You're blowing out New Orleans. The Clippers and the Portland Trailblazers are not going to be blown out. And so, like, you need him to get back to being efficient. You need the 23s that you hit against New Orleans' zone defense. You need that to be legitimate and to be sustained over the course of this road trip. You just need a lot to go right for you to come out of this road trip unscathed. And I think that those logistical things are going to be the toughest part because it's not about really the opponent, although you do find opponents in tough spots. Like, Portland is a team that, while they were playing great last year after the All-Star break, they absolutely were. You still beat them with, like, J. Will having a triple-double and having everyone shut down to the point you got investigated last season at the end of that year whenever they had nothing to play for. The Thunder didn't. So I do respect Portland, and I respect how they're capable of beating OKC, but I think that the bigger asset to them is the fact that they play on the second night of a road travel back to back. And I'm very curious how this team handles that. And curious, not in the sense of concerning, really, because I have no concerns that they're going to put their best foot forward, but it'd be wildly impressive to see them return home without a loss from this road trip.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is going to be a tougher road trip than the first one that they had. Obviously, that they had the target on their back with the Indy matchup, and they gave them their best shot. But like outside of that, I really do feel like this is going to be one where there's multiple opportunities for them to trip up along the way. So yeah, if they are able to come back, what would that be? That'd be 11-0. I mean, that'd be pretty impressive for sure.
You are going to be in the house for the Sacramento game on Friday. You're going to see the Kings court. You're going to see the NBA Cup festivities. You've been around this team for a couple of seasons. You've been around this team the entire time the NBA Cup's been a thing. What are your thoughts on the Cup? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you just not care at all about it? Like, what are your thoughts on the NBA Cup?
I mean, I like it. Some of the courts are a little bit too much for me. I'm not gonna lie. I always think of the quote from Steve Kerr when they played against the Bulls. He's like, I feel like I was descending into the pits of hell or whatever it is with the all red court. Some of it is a little bit much. I think the Pelicans had one too. Didn't they have one that was like purple?
Yeah,
I think
like
with like
lime green and neon. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah.
Some of them were just a little bit too much for me. But for the most part, I think it's cool. I think it's fun. Obviously you get to a certain time of the year where things start to drag on for like the casual viewer, and you need something to capture your attention. I totally get it. And the actual tournament, the NBA Cup, like the playoffs itself is fun as well. I don't know how long they'll keep it in Vegas. I'm not sure what the plan for that will be moving forward. But I mean, I think it's a cool little thing just to keep people entertained during the season.
I'm right there with you. It's like, I like it. It generates some buzz. Like there are some teams who take this seriously because there's that cash prize at the end. And I know that most of the top guys around the league are already handsomely paid, but you've got to factor in the two-way guys. You got to factor into the bench guys who have not hit their big paydays yet. And that's what the Thunder's motive was a year ago, was that big payday. I mean, Chet Holmgren gave the pregame speech about how you got to beat the Bucks to get the Bucks and things like that. So these teams do care about it. It creates more incentive to play in these regular season games for them. And then if you're a fan, like, there can get to a point where a younger NBA fan only knows a world that has an NBA Cup and thinks it's a really cool thing. So that's neat that it can introduce like new fans to something cool. But also, if you're a curmudgeon fan and like you've been watching the NBA forever and you've been watching Bird and Jordan and you think that this is just a dumb gimmick, well, guess what? You can fully ignore it. The only game that doesn't play out the exact same way you're used to is the championship game. Everything else, it counts as double. It counts as the regular season standings and the NBA Cup standings. So it does not impact your viewership whatsoever. And to your concerns about the court, I agree. The court's got out of hand to start this whole thing. This season, there's a few that are still wonky. There's a few reds, there's a few purples, there's a few neon green. But ultimately, a lot of teams have just decided to go with gray as their court, which is still an awkward color because you're not used to seeing it, but it's also much more aesthetically pleasing than the gaudy colors that there were before. And that cup game starts on Friday against the old Sacramento Kings. The Kings, who gave the Thunder a run in the Paycom Center, now return home. Where are you at on the Kings? Because Sabonis was just awful against OKC, but against Milwaukee the other night on Saturday, he was awesome. Levine was awesome. DeRozan was awesome. I think that the Kings could be much better if Saturday is who they are, not just from a scoring standpoint, but if you look at Saturday, they just abandoned defense and just said, we're just going to get in a shootout and outscore you. And that can get to be a tricky situation for OKC if they get into a shootout and they only really have Shai as like a go-to scorer.
Yeah, they're in a weird spot because I do feel like that is where they give themselves the best chance to win games. Obviously, they're not going to lean on their defense, but at the same time, when they get into a shootout, I mean, you're not going to get Russell Westbrook shooting like that on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
No disrespect, but for the most part, this is a team that's got Westbrook, it's got DeMar DeRozan, it's got Domantas Sabonis. Like, these are guys that do a lot of work inside the arc. So if you're trying to win a shootout with 2-pointers mostly, it's a little bit weird to me. I'm not a big fan of the construction of the team. I'm glad Russ got another chance to get into the league. So in that sense, that's cool. But in terms of like whether this team is going to be competing for much, I mean, it's going to be another play-in team. First round exit, I think, would be the ceiling. That's just kind of how I've been, or where I've been at with them for the past few seasons. And yeah, I just don't really see that changing too much this year.
If I had to nail you down on this road trip, it's Clippers, Portland, Sacramento, and Memphis. What's the record coming out of this?
I think they go 3-1. Yeah, if I had to pick one, I really do feel like that Portland game is going to be a scary one. I know it might not be the popular pick. Like I'd assume the popular pick would be the Clippers game. But yeah, I just feel like Portland's going to be one of those sneaky matchups. It's just a team that's going to make it. They're going to, Mark had talked about earlier how, they've had to play some games in the mud. Like it's going to be one of those games for sure. And they're going to throw a lot at Shai. And it's going to be a matter of who's able to step up on that second night. So yeah, that would be my pick. I would say 3-1 for OKC on this road trip.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1 also. To be different than you, I'll go Kings, because it's a weird team. They can get hot at the right time if they're just shooting over the top of OKC's defenders who are now lacking size without J-Dub, of course. Then they can get hot offensively. They can win a shootout. And weird things happen in the Cup. Like last year, even though the Thunder made the NBA Cup championship, they also had that loss to San Antonio in San Antonio, which people thought was going to end their Cup run. And then they ended up going to the playoffs and going to the championship anyway in the NBA Cup. So I'm going to have Sacramento earmarked as like the Thunder get through these first two games, which people are really concerned about. And they kind of think that they can take a sigh of relief. And then the Kings spoil the party at 9-0, turning them into 9-1, and then they beat the Grizzlies and they just return home 10-1. So I'm interested in this road trip. I think you're gonna have a lot of fun out there covering this road trip. Make sure that you check out not only the Oklahoman for Justin Martinez, but on Twitter, he's going to be out there being able to live tweet from the press conferences and getting us the information at Justin DeHoops on social media and on Twitter. So make sure you check that out. Coming up, are the Thunder even better this year than they were a year ago? And SGA won the Player of the Week award. But first, I want to tell you right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, go check out FanDuel today because FanDuel is incredible. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game and want to ride a hot hand that you've already seen get going, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks, whatever you want. They have it there, and you can even combine those bets into the same game parlay. Go check them out and see that you can get even bigger payouts with FanDuel. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com right now, sign up, and get started today. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And again, you hit that first $5 bet, you get $300 in bonus bets. And if you want to check out the NBA odds, how about this? The Washington Wizards are only 13-point underdogs in the Garden, and the Dallas Mavericks are 12.5-point underdogs in Houston. You can also check out the Thunder odds over there as well. But go over there right now to FanDuel.com. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles. Thank you so much to everydayers who make this show work and listen every single day, wherever you get your podcast from. Justin Martinez of the Oklahoman here. Justin, we have not seen this team at full strength yet. We still have not seen it happen, and yet they're still sitting here at 7-0. You touched on how they've improved already, but do you believe that with the developmental process that we've seen from guys like Ajay and Kayson, I think that Jay was really taking a stride, and he didn't get the recognition until yesterday because his three-point shot finally fell. But defensively, I think he's gotten a lot better than where he was a year ago. Hardenstein, and the year now that they've had together, he's making life easier on Shai, and his playmaking has really helped this offense in ways that it helped last year, but it's gotten better at helping them this year. Do you believe that this team is better than last year?
Yeah, I do. Shai talked about that after the New Orleans game. He was asked, what feels different? And I've got the quote here, and he said that, it feels like we've had a year to get better. Honestly, the personnel in the room hasn't really changed much. We added a few rookies, but since the start of last year, we've had a year to get better, play together, and learn each other on and off the court. And I think that last part is the important part, that they really have just become, obviously they were a tight-knit group last season too, but you can just tell that these guys know each other's strengths and know how to play alongside each other. And I just think that has made, a world of a difference. You've also seen the individual growth like we talked about. I think Jay Will is a great point. In addition to that 3-point shot falling, he had a tough matchup. He spent some time on like Zion Williamson. And I think that was an opportunity for Jay Will to really show, he'd been talking about losing some weight, getting his body right, becoming a little bit more agile. Like that is a matchup where you need to really use that against a guy in Zion who's just a freak athlete, at the 4 spot, is able to obviously get up there super quick. So I feel like he really shined there. You've seen the jump from like Isaiah Hardenstein, 14, 14, and 8 in that game. Even with all the injuries that OKC's had, he's been a real source of consistency. It's just a really good playmaker, obviously, at the 5, just a great rebounder, stout defender. He's still efficient around the rim. And then we talked about other guys making the jump like Ajay Mitchell, Kayson Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, I think, has even shown some improvements on defense. We know what he does on offense as well. So, yeah, I just feel like there's the growth within the team. And then also there's the fact that they are now learning even more how to play alongside each other. I think it's just only made them better, especially once they do get healthy this season. I think this is going to be an even better year, an even better team than last year.
Yeah, this is going to be a very fun team. And you mentioned the Zion assignment. Like yesterday, Jay Will went out there and he drew 2 charges on Zion. He blocked Zion at the rim. He forced the turnover for Yves Missi in the corner. Like he was active defensively and the shot was falling. And I think he's gotten better as a DHO screening option to set up these shooters. I think Isaiah Joe has gotten better as a guy who, is more comfortable now taking shots on the move as a shooter, which is a part of their game that they've really missed at times these last couple of seasons. And if that holds true from OKC and from Isaiah Joe, that gets them better. And we haven't even seen J-Dub play yet. Well, I'm not expecting J-Dub to have anything overhauled in his game. Could he be better going left now after working all summer long with his left? Could he be better just as a more polished player? And the thing with J-Dub that I think could tail into him being more polished is that from game 6 backward, like if you look at game 6 against Denver and everything that preceded it, he at times struggled to find the balance of like, when do I go take over a game? When do I go use force to the rim? When do I set my teammates up? And from game 7 against Denver on, he was on another level of physicality. He was on another level of aggression. And he kind of took ownership of being the number 2 scoring option on this team. And that was the first stretch where that was true. And it was assertion from him. And you look at the game 4 in the finals where, Shai gets the headlines for the 4th quarter. J-Dub ended up being your best scorer for the first 3 quarters to keep that game close, to let you win that game with Shai's 4th quarter. And then he had the 40-point night in the finals. And, the rest is history. He has a ring on his finger now for going through that while playing that way. And we're giving you examples from the playoffs in which he was playing with torn ligaments in his wrist. So it's like J-Dub, I think, can be more polished and just more crisp with his overall game and thus be better. I think that Chet Holmgren is much better as an offensive player than he was a year ago. And it just really does give a lot of credence to the fact that this team is better. And it goes back to what we talked about all summer long. While other teams were winning the headlines and making great moves, like Denver made great moves, and those moves are paying off, and they kind of got the instant gratification of being a better team in the summer because they knew for sure Cam would make them better. They knew for sure the added depth would make them better. The Thunder didn't change any of the names in their rotation. They banked on internal development. They banked on progression, and that progression so far is paying off. So I do think that they are better to head into this season and to continue on in the regular season, and will be better positioned for the postseason.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point that, also we know what Dub is gonna do when he comes back in here, but I think also this time of him being sidelined has allowed Chet to also unlock a part of his game and, gain some more confidence in that area, because I think they have empowered him a lot more now, giving him the ball a lot more than it would be. Obviously, when you add J-Dub, there's going to be another mouth you have to feed. But I think that's only going to help Chet in the long run as well. Then now he knows, what he is able to do. And then once you bring Dub in there as well, now you've got 3 guys who are, equally confident in putting the ball through the hoop. So I think even though it's been tough to see Dub out, it is helping some of the other guys continue to develop. And then once he does come in, we talked about his versatility. He's going to have no trouble fitting in where he gets in. So yeah, I think it is going to be, a pretty dangerous team once they're all at full strength.
Pretty dangerous team. And SGA winning the Player of the Week award, a 4-0 week for the Thunder. He averaged 28 points, 4 boards, and 6 assists. He gets his first Western Conference Player of the Week award of the season. He was a candidate last week whenever Victor Wembanyama won the award. Therese Maxey won the award for the Eastern Conference, and so SGA picks up another accolade here to start this season. Justin, I want to close the show with this, putting you on the spot, on the hot seat. So I'm going to filibuster a little bit to give you time to prepare. Is there an underrated storyline for you this season for the Thunder? Because we all know that there's certain things you have to do. Like, you have to write about Shai's excellent nights. You have to write about Chet making a step forward offensively. Like, there's certain things you have to check off the list because it takes such precedent and priority over the rest. But there's also things that can slip through the cracks at times. Is there a topic that you haven't had the chance to get off your chest yet, and it hasn't been the right moment to really talk about yet, that you think is an underrated addition or storyline or compliment or development or anything to this team?
Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on it looking at like individual guys, but I think the big picture and the whole long-term goal for this team is, you're going to have to pay the big three. You're going to have a kind of a revolving door of these other role players. And in order to do that, you're going to have to continue to hit in the draft, especially later in the draft, because obviously your picks are no longer going to be as valuable, assuming you don't have other teams as picks. But I just think you look at like the second round success stories that OKC has. We're seeing Ajay Mitchell turn into one. You've obviously got Aaron Wiggins. You've got Jalen Williams, Jay Will. You've got Lou Dort as well. Like second round and undrafted. And then like you look at these guys who they brought in as well, like Brooks Barnhizer looks like someone who is already getting minutes on a championship team. Granted, there's obviously injuries and that's helping free up some minutes, but he's able to carve out a role as well. Chris Youngblood, when they needed 3-point shooting, he's able to come into like that. To me, I think is what's really going to lead to the sustained success of OKC. As great as the big three is going to be, they're going to need guys who are on these smaller rookie contracts to continue to be able to contribute. And I just think that they've already done such a great job of that. And it really speaks to the front office and the moves that they've made.
That's exactly what opens up the dynastic possibilities for this team, is the ways that they're able to hit on the margins and fill out this roster. A little quick note from Blue Media Day. I love the OKC Blue. I love the G League. So I couldn't get off this show without talking about Blue Media Day. Malachi Leones, who is familiar with this audience because he went to training camp a couple of times with the Thunder. He even got a spot on the team last year to start the year. Malachi Leones said of Brooks Barnhizer that he would run through a brick wall for his teammates. I think that Brooks Barnhizer would run through a brick wall for fun, but he's someone who's like already made that impression on his teammates, even those who only played with him for summer league and so for a little bit of training camp, like someone who's not been in with him every single day, the way that some of these other guys have for this team. So I think that Brooks Barnhizer is going to be a success story because he already has a legit NBA skill with his defense. And you've got to figure out the offensive stuff with him. You've got to find a role for him offensively. I think that'll get a little bit easier whenever this team is full and there's a more clear identity of what his task is on a given night. But in general, like, Brooks Barnhizer has passed all the right tests as a second round guy. Obviously, don't get to see Sorber yet. Haven't got to see Topic yet, but they have a good track record. Kayson Wallace leading league in steals was another pick that they hit on and they traded up for with that Derek Lively swap. So I'm interested to see that magic continuing to work. And part of the beauty is you have all these picks from yourself, from other teams, and you have the ability to thread that needle of trying for a high upside player still while also banking on sure things. Like, for example, they tried Dylan Jones and they went up and got Dylan Jones. It didn't work out. He was tantalizing. He was an awkward player, but he had a ton of potential. And it didn't work out. They were able to abort mission there, but they got the sure thing in Ajay Mitchell in the second round. It's like a prize second round pick, which if you remember, like, they had to trade 4 different times to go up and get Ajay and make sure they walked away with Ajay Mitchell. And he was a steady guard who wasn't perceived to have any sort of lofty ceiling, but was perceived to have a very high floor as a for sure rotational piece. And through not even 40 games of his NBA career, you've already gotten him on to 2 different contracts, and you've already seen that he'll for sure be a rotational piece for this team. So threading that line has been really good for this Thunder team so far in the front office. They got to continue that. And so I think that it is an underrated storyline from Justin Martinez. J-Mart, let them know what they should be going and reading that's out now. What if you want to know anything that's coming up, and just where to overall follow you for this road trip.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at JustIntoHoops, and you can follow all my work on the Oklahoman. Stuff that's in the works. It should be coming out maybe even today or as this is coming out. I actually got to catch up with Will Dawkins, obviously former Thunder guy, now trying to lay a new foundation there in Washington. And I got to talk to just some, like, as many Wizards people as I could about, that culture shift in Washington. So that's something that should be coming out pretty soon, today, maybe tomorrow. And then, yeah, just following along for all the coverage throughout this West Coast trip. I love the Thunder Buddies podcast as well, with Joe Masato. Should be coming out probably Wednesday. Just a lot of basketball coverage,
A lot of stuff. Go check out Thunder Buddies. Go check out the Oklahoman. And what is for sure already out, go read Justin's story on Beat Krejci, another guy who we all love in OKC. Make sure you go do that. Justin, thank you so much for joining us again on Locked On Thunder. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.